If you couldn't tell by that intro, I climbed a goddamn mountain. And do you know why I climbed a goddamn mountain? It's because I implement these strategies to have more energy and to be less tired. Because at the end of the day, if you're not climbing mountains, what the hell are you doing with your life? Let's get back to somewhere warmer now. Let me ask you one question. Do you feel tired throughout the day? Now let me guess. It's probably a yes. The thing that separates us from the greats like Elon Musk and Kanye West isn't that we have a lot of money, isn't that we have Lamborghinis, it's that they aren't tired and they have boundless energy. If we weren't tired and sluggish all the time, we could crank out a couple chapters of America's next big novel, we could invent hydrogen-powered planes, and we could also write the world's best music. Except we're reduced to sluggish and sleep-deprived zombies. And the resemblance is kind of uncanny. We have bags underneath our eyes, we're always moping around. So what can we do to fix it? If somehow we weren't so tired all the time, we would be working at a much greater level. Now the tiredness I'm talking about isn't associated with any sleep conditions such as insomnia or narcolepsy. I'm talking about more general tiredness that many people experience. It is a pain in the ass, and it sucks. But it is completely preventable through the adoption of healthier habits and more conscious efforts. So tip number one is to get enough sleep. We've all heard the magical 7 to 8 hours, and the chart from the World Health Organization that tells you how many hours you should be getting for how old you are. But let's be real, that chart is so general. Everybody's different and everybody has different sleep needs. Like for me, if I don't get enough sleep or my sleep's interrupted, I'm a cranky and miserable person, and people can vouch for that. Even if you get the recommended amount of hours, you can still wake up in the morning feeling like you got hit by a train. And that's probably because you aren't respecting the body's sleep cycles. There's multiple steps in the sleep cycle that all correspond to different amounts of brain activity. The most profound stage of the sleep cycle is REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. And this sleep is the most beautiful. REM sleep benefits memory, learning, and mood. A lack of REM sleep has adverse implications on your physical health and mental health. If you wake up during this stage of the sleep cycle, you're gonna feel like absolute garbage the next morning. See, this is a risky play when you set an alarm. We didn't have access to alarm clocks back in the day. Our sleep patterns were much more in tune with the rising and setting of the sun. Before alarm clocks, people would almost completely rise after the completion of their sleep cycle. If a person who sleeps only for 4 cycles or 6 hours, they'll feel much more rested than someone who slept 8 to 10 hours, but doesn't complete any sleep cycles. Instead of using an alarm clock, you should learn when you wake up naturally, and then set the alarm clock according to that to act as a backup. This means going to bed early and beating the alarm. Say you have trouble with the first part, going to bed early, as I do. Then you're going to want to get all the distractions out of your bed. See, for me, that's my phone. If my phone's in the bed, I get sucked down a YouTube rabbit hole, and it's not pretty. Then you find a news article on how violent, angry Americans are robbing puzzle stores. And guess what? I can't fall asleep easy after that. Imagine that. Say if you still have a rock solid sleep schedule and still wake up feeling like trash, then your problem might not be the amount of sleep you're getting, but instead something completely different, the amount of sunlight exposure. We're going to jump into the science here shortly, but the number one thing that helps me when I start to feel brain fog coming in is to get outside and go for a 20 to 25 minute walk. I mean, this makes intuitive sense, right? Because as humans, we were designed to move. We weren't meant to be stagnant creatures that sat in chairs all day. Our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. That means they were always tracking their food several miles and then hauling it back to their camp. Even when we started shifting to agriculture, we still were on our feet, planting the crops, harvesting the crops all year round. There was always something to do in our lives that kept us on our feet. Now we spend most of our lives in a sedentary state. A lot of time is spent in chairs looking at computers, phones, and books, which keep us inside for a long time. Which again is a big contributor why you're feeling tired. So sunlight plays a huge role in maintaining your energy levels. Sunlight exposure helps your body regulate that magical hormone called melatonin. This hormone allows you to go to sleep and maintain your circadian rhythm, which keeps you in sync with the rising and setting of the sun. Sunlight exposure is also your body's main source of vitamin D. Vitamin D regulates the amount of calcium and phosphate your body produces, which helps you maintain good teeth and bone health. It also keeps your heart and lungs working properly. And last time I checked, we kind of needed those. Sunlight exposure is pretty damn good. It also directly correlates to fatigue. An article that was written in 2019 in Physiology Today found that participants who had a lack of vitamin D had higher levels of fatigue than those who had regular amounts of vitamin D in their body. So what the researchers did is they balanced out the vitamin D needs of those participants, meaning that they were getting the recommended amount of vitamin D. And when they got their vitamin D levels back to normal, they saw huge improvements, if you can imagine, in their fatigue. I'll leave a link to the article in the description below because it's pretty interesting how much our body needs and operates on vitamin D. In the winter months, for the people not living on the equator, the sun simply isn't powerful enough to get you the recommended amount of vitamin D. And this is called seasonal affective disorder. If that's the case for you, you might want to look into a vitamin D supplement. It's still also a good idea to get outside in the sun for at least a little bit every single day, nonetheless. Every once in a while, it pays off to go outside. And plus, you get views like this. Your body and mind will thank you. That brings us to the principle of exercise. And oh my God, I cannot understate this enough. If you feel tired in the morning, you need to exercise. You might think the only way not to feel tired is to do an intense, rigorous workout every single day. But luckily, that's not the case. And even doing some low intensity exercise, like going for a walk, can greatly reduce the effects of fatigue. In 2016, a paper was published in the Journal of Physiotherapy, exploring the relationship between moderate intensity exercise and energy levels. They found that participants who did exercise 60 minutes a day with moderate intensity had significantly higher energy levels and reduced fatigue throughout the day. What's interesting about this study is that they found also that people who did more intense, they also had participants who did high intensity workouts. And they found that they had reduced energy levels and higher fatigue levels than those of the moderate into lower intensity workout group. Which is interesting because you would think that doing more intense workouts would give you more energy, but that's simply not true. Once more, the study found that doing any amount of exercise greatly boosted energy and lowered fatigue levels than those participants who didn't even do exercise. So bottom line is, if you like doing heavy deadlift workouts, then by all means, do some heavy deadlift workouts. If you like pulling planes by your teeth, do that. Or if you like going for a nice walk in the middle of the day, do that too. The workouts you'll do will give you the same benefits nonetheless. Now, let's talk about caffeine. We all have a friend or two friends that just love to indulge themselves in, say, Starbucks every single day, going to Starbucks and getting a new drink. Now, I'm not outright condemning caffeine. It definitely has its place when used in moderation to help stave off fatigue and to help you finish that big project that you've been working on. However, it's super easy to use too much caffeine, and that's where the problem begins. If you drink coffee late enough in the day, it can really mess with your sleep. And I'm sure you've done this before, where you drank a big pot of coffee or just even a cup of coffee and tried to go to bed, you couldn't fall asleep. It's because caffeine has a half-life of 7 hours. And what a half-life is when 7 hours has passed, that means half of the caffeine is still in your body. And it only takes 50 milligrams of caffeine to mess with your sleep. And in a usual cup of coffee, that's 300 to 250 milligrams. If you compromise your sleep by drinking caffeine right before you go to bed, snowballing the effect, because in the morning, you're going to need a cup of coffee to make you less tired. Much like any other drug, your body begins to build up a tolerance to caffeine when it's used regularly. This is an extreme example, but let's take morphine. When morphine is used for a long time, more and more doses are needed to get the same high or buzz as before. This is because the body produces more and more metabolism enzymes that break down the morphine in the liver, which makes it harder for the drug to find receptors in the body to bind to, ultimately reducing the affinity of the drug. Now, morphine and caffeine are different drugs. The same still applies. The more you use, the less you feel. Now slap that onto a drug awareness t-shirt, because that's a pretty good catchphrase. The process of writing yourself off caffeine can be tough and a slow road. Going outside, getting sunlight, and also adopting better sleep and exercise habits can help curb your caffeine usage, but it's still going to take a lot to break. If you still want to get a little buzz in the morning, instead of using coffee to get it, you can try tea. Tea doesn't have nearly as much caffeine as coffee does, but it still has a little bit. Not to mention, it's loaded with minerals and vitamins. For those who think tea tastes like dirty gutter water, I have 3 words for you. Loose leaf tea. Not only is it more flavorful and higher quality, it comes in hundreds and hundreds of different flavors. Another tip that fits in to the category of curbing your caffeine usage is drinking water. Water is also a good substitute for coffee. If you're someone who barely drinks enough water, carry around a water bottle. I do this when I'm going on trips or going to school or even just in my house. When I carry around a water bottle, it makes me aware of the amount I'm actually drinking and makes me drink more throughout the day. Because if I didn't have a water bottle with me, I would probably just stick with my classic drinks like chocolate milk or Coke. And sure, water won't give you a buzz quite like caffeine does, or any buzz at all. Every single part of your body needs water, including the thing between your ears, your brain, and it needs it to function properly. The magical 8 cups of water may not be scientifically sound, but people don't drink nearly enough of it. Alright, we've covered a lot of material in this video up to this point, covering several topics to have more energy and to reduce fatigue. So let's do a quick recap. Number 1 is to get enough sleep and respect your body's natural sleep cycles. Number 2 is to get outside and into the sunlight at least a little bit every single day. Number 3 is to do some exercise every day, even going on a walk. Number 4 is to use caffeine sparingly. And 5 is to drink enough water. These tips may not be anything new or surprising, or may even be common sense to you, but let me ask you, how many tips are you actually sticking to? And how many do you actually use throughout your day? Because when it comes down to it, avoiding a life of constantly being tired comes down to adopting healthier habits. That's it. And we need gentle reminders, and even to set up a system to take them seriously. Especially when we have goals, relationships, schoolwork, jobs, and video games that are all fighting for our time. Your body will reward you with an unparalleled abundance of energy to tackle any task life throws at you. You might even have enough energy to tackle projects you couldn't even imagine of doing. Instead of watching Netflix as soon as you're done with your schoolwork, you can instead learn a new language or delve into your newfound passion of scuba diving. Now, if you have any tips on how not to be chronically tired all the time, leave them in the comments below so other people can benefit from them. I know we barely scratched the surface on proper nutrition or how to take naps properly. Now, you're probably worried, like, when is Riley Philpotts going to make videos on nutrition and how to take naps properly? Well, let me promise you, I will be making those videos very soon. And if you want to be notified about those videos, you can go ahead and turn on the bell icon down below. And if you're feeling a little cheeky, go ahead and subscribe, no pressure. But that'll do it for me. Let me know what tips you think you'll be adopting in the future to help boost your energy and get done. New videos every Thursday. Philpotts out.